Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So today we're heading all the way back to Legacy for a deck that looks like it could be legal in Modern. It's actually pretty close. This is Legacy Jund, which is feeling the influence of some new cards, not only from Kaladesh, but also from Eldritch Moon. A quick reminder before we break down the deck, if you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So this build of Jund recently took Peyote to a 5-0 finish in a Magic Online League, so congrats to Peyote on their finish with the deck. And the neat thing about Jund, before we get to the individual cards, is while the deck is expensive, $2,400 in paper, 750 ticks-ish on Magic Online, it's actually pretty cheap for a certain subset of players. So a huge percentage of this deck is Modern legal. It actually looks a lot like a Modern Jund deck. So if you're a Modern Jund player or have a big Modern collection, there's a chance that Legacy Jund is actually going to be really cheap for you and a good entryway into the Legacy format. So keep that in mind. You may have some of these cards laying around. Definitely if you're a Modern Jund player, you have almost the entire deck. And just if you have a big Modern collection, you likely have a lot of these cards hanging around, reducing the price quite a bit. So Jund in Legacy is just like Jund in Modern. It's built around playing the most efficient creatures at basically every point on the curve, and then just grinding the opponent out with 2-for-1 removal, these incremental advantages, and over the course of time, that advantage and that efficiency adds up to a match win. So creature-wise, we get a bunch of Modern staples. Grimflayer and Tarmogoyf, they're the new best friends. Tarmogoyf, huge for a 2-drop. Grimflayer, also huge for a 2-drop if you have Delirium, but it fills the graveyard to turn on Delirium and to pump up your Tarmogoyf to make your Tarmogoyf even bigger. And then Scavenging Ooze used to be fighting with Tarmogoyf in this slot as the better 2-drop. Now it's been pushed all the way down to a 1-of thanks to Grimflayer and its power, but it does something that nothing else in the deck does as far as 2-drop creatures go, and it gains your life and also hates on the graveyard, which can be pretty relevant in a world of Snapcaster Mages and reanimation decks. So it gives you this main deck way to fight against certain strategies, and it can get pretty big in its own right. The rest of the creatures in the deck are not Modern legal, but they were Modern legal not that long ago. Deathrite Shaman, banned because of its dominance in Modern Jund, lets you play Liliana's on turn 3, generates mana, fights against the graveyard, can gain you life when you're behind, can drain your opponent when you're ahead. It's like a 1-mana Planeswalker, and then Bloodbraid Elf cascades into free Lilianas, and the nice thing about Bloodbraid Elf in this deck is every single card you can cascade into is a hit in a huge percentage of situations. Then we have Liliana herself, a great Planeswalker. It's cheap, can come down on turn 2 off Deathrite, can come down for free off Bloodbraid Elf, pressures the opponent's hand, deals with creatures, does everything you want for a low mana cost. Removal-wise, we got a ton of options. Abrupt Decay kills pretty much anything for only 2 mana, can't be countered. Legacy is so efficient that you hit just about everything that matters in the format, even with the 3 converted mana cost or less restriction. Tarfire is in the Lightning Bolt slot because it's a tribal instant, which gives more card types for your Grimflayers, pumps up your Tarmogoyf. Kolaghan's Command does a bit of everything, and Punishing Fire is another way to grind out the game. It can kill the opponent, can also wipe away all of your opponent's little creatures with the help of Grove of the Burn Willows. So this is kind of one of the combos of the deck. Once you have a Grove and a Punishing Fire, you add a red mana with Grove, which gains your opponent a life, which triggers Punishing Fire. Use that red mana to get back Punishing Fire, then you shock your opponent. You can do this to their face over and over again, and even though they gain 1 life with each iteration, you're dealing 2 damage, so you slowly grind them out. Plus, it just is a really hard to deal with way to take care of Delvers and Dark Confidants and all these small creatures that dominate the Legacy format. As far as discard, we get Thoughtseize, also Modern legal, and Hymn to Turak, a 2-for-1 on a stick, and really powerful because it makes the opponent discard 2 cards at random, so you can sometimes just randomly mana screw your opponent, hit their 2 best cards, hit the 2 lands they were counting on to cast their spells. Sylvan Wasteland Advocate generates some card advantage, also helps filter through the deck a bit. And then a couple of Chandra Torch of Defiance on the top end. Can kill creatures, generates card advantage, can kill the opponent, adds mana, does a ton, and the ultimate is pretty much unbeatable. Mana base wise, we get a bunch of fetch lands, and then we have a bunch of dual lands and wastelands. So if you're a modern Jund player, this group of cards right here is the main cost to porting over your modern Jund deck to Legacy. The dual lands are expensive. Wasteland, not as expensive as it used to be thanks to some reprintings, but still fairly expensive. If you need to make some substitutes over the short term with shock lands, you can, but there's really no substitute for Wasteland. And then just a couple basic lands. And then in the sideboard, we get Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast to fight against blue decks. We get a ton of more discard with Duress and Thoughtseize, some more removal to kind of wipe away the board in Toxic Deluge and Golgari Charm, then a bunch of hate cards, Choke to fight blue decks, Null Rod for artifact-based strategies, Surgical Extraction, gets rid of Reanimator, could also be good enough against Snapcaster decks in some scenarios. Pithing Needle can shut down opposing Jason Mind Sculptors, Wastelands, a lot of targets. And then just a Life from the Loam to get back your Wastelands, grind out even more value. And that is Jund in Legacy. And that's been our Instant Deck Tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.